You can now support Ghost Maps on Patreon. Simply look for We Are HANTU or click the link in the description. Inspired by an account from Jane. Ghost Maps, entry 114, Sarawak, Malaysia. This is my third interview on this Hungry Ghost Month night. I'm sitting at a coffee shop in Seletar, one that you've probably never been to. I'm surrounded by people, but none of them are alive. So far, 2 members of this family of ghosts have shared with me their stories. This one is a woman dressed in a very simple, though still very classic, kabaya, while sporting a hairstyle from the 60s. Her name is Anita, and even though she looks like she's in her late 20s, she comes across as very motherly. "Nola, I never had children of my own, sayang," she says, adding a little sing-song tone to that last word. "But I was always helping my family to look after theirs." When Anita was alive, she resided in a town in Sarawak called Chong. Her life, she tells me, was cut short after she was hit by a car. Since then, her spirits roamed the area in which she died. "I've never haunted anyone though," she says. She does, however, protect the people of the town as much as she can, particularly from reckless drivers. That's mostly been the case, except during one particular Hungry Ghost Month. I flip my notebook back open, then ask her to start from the beginning. It was 1989. In the 20 or so years since Anita's passing, a school had been built around the area where she had met her death, which made Anita all the more determined to watch over the living. "After all, who needs protection more than the children?" she says. She confesses that it made her feel more like a mother than she had ever expected to. Sometimes she would even reach out and caress some of the children's hair. They would brush it off as the breeze or their friends being cheeky. But it filled Anita's spirit with such joy. The teachers were mostly good people too. Some of them were stricter than others. Some of them tried to be a buddy to the kids. Whatever their approach, they mostly had the students' best interest at heart. Mostly. One particular substitute teacher had a strange energy about him though, Anita says. She couldn't pinpoint what it was. He wasn't malicious towards the children, but after his stint was done, whether he knew it or not, he left something behind. Because the school was located in an out-of-the-way part of Chong, the teachers had their own quarters on school grounds. Anywhere between 3 to 5 teachers would share a simple house. Each house was built on stilts. They were about 2 meters tall. The substitute teacher stayed in the quarters furthest from the school. The whole time he was there, his housemates didn't seem to notice anything out of the ordinary, and neither did Anita. When another teacher moved in, however, that's when things started to change. The new teacher's name was Thomas. Unlike his predecessor, he was there as part of the full-time staff. He was happy to be teaching there, but within a few days, he was plagued by sleepless nights. Anita overheard him speaking with another teacher. He said he felt a strange energy around him too, she says, her brow furrowing even now. She decided to sit quietly in the corner of his room over the next few nights. It sounded like he needed her protection more than the children did. But Anita wondered, would her protection be enough? 2 nights passed without incident, except that both Anita and Thomas sensed that something was wrong. On the 3rd night, however, at around 3 a.m., Anita suddenly felt that strange energy grow stronger. Stronger than she had ever felt before. Thomas felt it too, tossing and turning violently in bed, though as far as Anita could tell, he had not woken up. And then she saw it, or at least the shape of it. No matter how close she came to it, she could never get a clear look at this creature that crept into Thomas's room. It seemed to be always obscured by shadows and to shift in size from enormous to only slightly bulkier than Thomas. If it had been a fellow spirit before, it wasn't now. Anita tells me that she's heard stories of ghosts that stay on Earth for too long and grow into something else. I tell her that I have had some experience with such creatures. This one didn't sound like such a creature though, no matter how menacing Anita found it. And it was menacing. While Thomas still slept, it crouched at the foot of his bed. It bared what looked like its teeth and its claws or nails before it could pounce onto its unsuspecting victim. It sniffed the air, then turned towards Anita. I know that I can't die again, but, she says, shivering despite not being able to feel how chilly this evening is. It snarled at Anita and seemed to be moving towards her, but then stopped when Thomas began to stir. Immediately, the creature pinned Thomas down, its mouth opening impossibly wide. Thomas's own lips parted, but he couldn't scream. His eyes opened wide in terror. He struggled beneath the creature's grip, but could barely move. Anita wanted to help, but this was different from shoving a child out of the way of a moving car. She was frozen to where she stood in the corner of the room. And that's when she noticed that Thomas wasn't just trying to escape the creature. He was trying to reach for the rosary sitting just out of his reach on the bedside table. While she couldn't directly touch the religious object, Anita could still do something. She knew the beast was aware of her presence, so she screamed at it. She hoped that it would distract it just enough for Thomas to grab his rosary. Because if it didn't, then she knew that she was next. The beast looked up at her again, annoyed for just a moment. But that moment was all Thomas needed. He reached out and grabbed the rosary tightly. The creature's howl was deafening. Thomas's hands clasped around his ears just as Anita did the same. Whatever that beast was, it leapt out of the room and out of the house. Thomas and Anita sat in silence after. Him still on his bed, her on the floor in the corner of the room. Neither moved till morning. I don't know what happened to the creature, Anita tells me. Or even what it was, for sure. She has her suspicions. Maybe a Bunsu Jalu, an entity from Iban folklore. Around Song, I wouldn't be surprised, she says. It never came back though. But that morning after, Thomas stared at the shadows beneath his lodgings for a little too long. Whether he saw something or not, Anita doesn't know. All she knows is that he managed to convince the school to let him and his housemates sleep in another house. Till this day, no one sleeps in that house where he was attacked. I ask her whether she's encountered anything else that's similarly frightening, and the spirit shakes her head. I'm happy to just mind the children from here on. Thank you. She chuckles. Anita stands up, walks off, and like my previous interviewee, vanishes. Henry, the spirit of the old man that's representing this family, steps forward again. How are you finding our stories? He asks. I tell him that it's interesting to get a new perspective on what I do. I also say that even though I've heard of and briefly encountered benevolent spirits before, his family feels very... I pause, for some reason unable to find the right word. Human? Offers Henry. I smile and nod in agreement. If you want to discover more of Southeast Asia's other side, subscribe now and follow us on social media. You can also be one of our supporters on Patreon. Look for We Are HANTU or click the links in the description. Ghost Maps is a HANTU production created by Kyle Ong and Wayne Ray, with art direction by Jolene Lim, and recorded on Audio Technica mics.